Welcome to the Prairie State Wire podcast. I'm Brian Hyde, and today I welcome Shannon Adcock. Shannon is the founder of Awake, Illinois. And Shannon, I know that's just one of multiple hats that you wear, but for those who are meeting you for the very first time, take a moment to tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, thank you, Brian, for the invitation to this podcast. Grateful to speak to you and your audience. So I am a mom here in Illinois. I live in Naperville, and my husband and I are born and raised in Illinois. We left for about 12 years, had our children in Arizona, and came back here in 2015. And, we were always proud to be from the land of Lincoln and in the Midwest. I think Illinois is just a great place to raise a family. But unfortunately, in 2020, when I saw the negative effects of lockdowns, the lacking logic behind them, particularly pertaining to school closures, I really began to pay close attention to local politics, to our school board, who is sitting on the school board, who is making these decisions. And I very quickly realized these people are not really representing the populace. They're representing special interest groups like the teacher unions. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll throw my hat in the ring and I'll run for school board. I'm a mom. I have 3 children, pay pretty high property taxes here in Illinois. I'll give it a shot. And wow, that was a huge awakening for me to see just how deep the funding to special interests goes and how they do not really want independent critical thinkers on these school boards. So when I started saying, now DEI is a very common acronym, right? Everybody knows diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I was seeing these applications in school, looking behind the curtain during lockdowns, during Zooms, seeing a lot of this identity politics stuff coming into classrooms. And as a school board candidate, I said, hey, I don't really think this is a very good pedagogy, as they call it. And the teacher unions, all of these leftist interest groups started calling me a racist and a white supremacist. And I thought, oh, this is really, really crazy, right? I'm just a mom and I just want to see ethical governance in our local school district. And so 2 days after losing the school board race, I got close to the union back slate. But 2 days after losing that race, I started Awake, Illinois as a nonprofit social welfare advocacy organization. And we've just been taking these issues here in Illinois by storm.
Just from what you've described, I'm sure you have a very, very full plate. So let's talk about when it comes to prioritizing, what are some of the places where you find yourself spending more of your effort?
Well, you have to be strategic, right? Because in the state of Illinois, where we have a super Marxist majority, a lot of woke, a lot of issues negatively affecting our families, it's like whack-a-mole. That's what I call it. It's like, where do you start and where do you end? So I think the big issue right now that people are recognizing is incredibly harmful is what's called a gender ideology or transgenderism or queer theory as it applies to particularly K through 12 governance. So Awake Illinois, my organization, filed 2 federal civil rights complaints in the last 2 months. It's the busiest we have been since I think our first year when we launched in 2021. And what this is looking to do is hold our schools accountable to ethical governance. For example, keeping males out of girls' bathrooms in, for example, Bolingbrook High School in Valley View School District 365, which is where we have filed one of our federal civil rights complaints. Parents have had no idea that these, quote, policies have been in place. They may have heard it sort of almost like hyperbole, like concepts maybe in other parts of the country, but they've never known it to really be happening in their children's school district or in the state of Illinois. And they're figuring this out very swiftly now. And so we had a father come to us back in November, Brian, and he told us that a boy was being permitted into his daughter's bathroom. So she was using the bathroom, saw somebody outside her stall through the, little break there in the door. And when she emerged, she saw a male standing there in male clothing, by the way. That's a pretty important detail. We haven't spoken too much about the details of that particular interaction, but she told her father, and she was very uncomfortable. She felt vulnerable and unsafe. And so since November, we've had to watch, first President Trump get elected and see the 2020 Title IX protections of students reinstated. The Biden rule that said anything goes basically and boys can be in girls' sports and in girls' spaces, that's been vacated by the U.S. District. And so this is very important. We had to line up all of these things to have all of the right policies in place where we could file a federal civil rights complaint. And I don't know if you're familiar with this or your audience, but a task force has been created through the Department of Education and the Department of Justice. So U.S. Secretary McMahon in the Department of Education, and then Pam Bondi, U.S. Attorney General. They have a task force right now that is focused solely on these Title IX complaints, and they're getting flooded with them. And sources close to the administration tell us that Awake Illinois' federal complaint has been prioritized. There's also a federal civil rights complaint pending against Chicago public schools for their policies, allowing all of this that's in violation of Title IX, boys and girls spaces, sports teams, and it's just gone bonkers. And I don't know if you saw recently, Chicago Teacher Union in their contract put in a clause that says male teachers can have access to female student spaces, bathrooms if they want to. That's part of their contract right now. So this is not hyperbole. It's happening statewide. It's a systemic issue. And Awake Illinois has been on the front lines of calling attention to this and appealing now to the federal government because Illinois is broke. It's good news, bad news. Illinois is broke, but they rely heavily on federal funding. And so this is a pretty easy way to hold them accountable.
Shannon, how are parents responding in terms of those who say, look, I don't even want to subject my kids to, the gender ideology that seems, prevalent in public schools? Is this driving more people to the homeschooling movement? In fact, for that matter, is homeschooling likewise experiencing pressure from some of these same groups that promoting these, gender ideologies?
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. So homeschooling has been on the rise. It's the fastest growing education sector, if you will, across the country, particularly over the last 5 years, as more parents did see, the abhorrent governance in the local school boards, the special interests involved in that, and then the radical sex education that was passed, at least in Illinois in 2021, that says K through 12, if you teach comprehensive sexual education, you have to incorporate concepts of gender ideology and transgenderism and being born into the wrong body and a million different genders as young as kindergarten, right? So parents have figured this out. They're devastated by it because people want to see their local school districts do well. They already pay a ton of taxes into them. They want them to do well, but they've been pushed against a wall, right? Regular people are not able to get elected to their school board. They don't have representative government. And so they have chosen private school, or they have chosen a parochial school and or homeschool. Homeschool is huge in the state of Illinois, particularly because since the 50s, it has been a very, very free sector. You haven't had to register or file paperwork until, and many people in Illinois are now familiar with this, until we have a really radical legislator here in the state of Illinois who has filed House Bill 2827. Rep. Tara Costa Howard filed this. She's a special interest legislator. Teacher unions, all the woke special interests have funded her campaigns. And 2827 is called the Homeschool Act. Wake, Illinois calls it the Homeschool Attack Bill, because when it was initially drawn, it was going to criminalize parents who do not register with the state or with their local school district and basically consider those children truant, which would then mean that government could knock on their door and investigate them. I mean, this was a really, really radically drawn bill. Really radical special interests put this bill together with these legislators. And so, unfortunately, yet again, as parents harness education freedom and usurp their parental rights, which I would assert are God-given, Pritzker doesn't give those to us. No government gives them to us. They're trying to attack that, the foundation of liberty. You can educate your children in your home. And this bill is getting incredible pushback. I mean, the statewide grassroots lobby against this has been fantastic. It has been probably one of the best grassroots lobby ever efforts in the state of Illinois to show people what exactly is happening in this bill, the interest behind it, and why it needs to be fought. But more importantly, why going into 2026 midterms, people need to unseat these